I was brought in before Cork District Court again today, the 23rd of November, to answer, in this instance, 3 cases. Now, they're all to do with lockdown issues, organising public assemblies and so on. But that isn't the issue of importance that I want to explain today. The issue is, as I tried to allude in some of the posts where I was saying that I was appearing today, is the utter corruption of the Court Services Office here in Cork, the collaboration it has between judges and prosecutors, which I have absolute proof of, and in their own words I have the proof of. So court services and the courts, rather than being an independent party in the administration of justice, has shown to be completely biased in favour of the state's efforts to persecute me for having stood up and maybe challenged in my own small way the dictate of a state against its own people. So the cases outstanding from there, some of them commenced in March, April of 2021. So they're heading on 3 years. In total, they have 8 cases on me. On average, each of those cases has been before a judge about 30 times. I don't know the precise number because the court office won't give me the information that I'm entitled to under various conventions, under the 2012-13 EU directive, under the 2016-680 EU directive. I'm entitled to access to these public records about my own business, my own cases, but they won't give them to me. So I was in court here before Judge O'Leary on the 14th of September, and despite all those appearances in court, never once in nearly 3 years now has court services provided a translation service for Irish. I conduct my business as Scaling. Never once. Anybody who enters courtrooms anywhere in Ireland today will generally hear translators working for various European and Eastern European or African languages. It's a constant. But in nearly 3 years, they haven't provided one translation service for Irish. It's an utter disgrace. It's a violation of my rights. It's a violation of every citizen's rights, every Irish man and woman's right to conduct their business in court services in front of the courts in their own native language or national language. And this has been established in our constitution. It's been established through my own efforts in earlier High Court hearings. Anyway, it's of no consequence to them. So on the 14th, the judge decided, as she wasn't hearing me out again, she decided to put all my cases rescheduled to the 3rd of November. Now try to bear with me with the dates because they're the story really. The cases were all deferred, 8 of them, until the 3rd of November in Court 1 inside here, which is where Judge O'Leary had been sitting. I turned up on that date with some friends and the courtroom was locked. There was no one there. So I said, oh, mistake, it's been removed or something. So I go to the court office and ask. 2 members of staff in the court office here in Cork told me, because I asked them separately to make sure I was hearing correctly, 2 of them told me my case was transferred upstairs to courtroom number 4, which is the circuit court. Now I said, what? That can't be right, because my cases were in the district court. I mean, they insisted that's right. So, okay, I go up to court 4. I'm told there by the registrar in the court that no, that Judge O'Leary isn't here, that it's in Washington Street. So I say, oh, okay. Off we go across the city to another courthouse at the far end of the city centre here, and in Washington Street, and I go in to court 4 thinking that's where to go, to find that's in camera. It's not my business at all. So we go looking and we ask the court office in Washington Street, where's my case? They couldn't tell me. So we eventually found, through checking various rooms, we found Judge O'Leary in courtroom number 6. So between hearings of different cases, I asked the judge, I said, Judge, I appear before you like you have ordered me to on the 14th of September. I'm here, but I notice there's no prosecutors. What's happening? And she says, well, I don't remember ever scheduling you to come here. In fact, she says, I wouldn't have done that. I said, well, you did, Judge. I have notes. And I said, I note there's no DPP, there's no one from City Hall to move their cases. Therefore, I ask you to strike them out. Now, she said she couldn't do that, but she gave an undertaking to listen to the DAR from the 14th of the 9th, that is, the digital recording of the court hearings, which scheduled me to be in court 1 on the 3rd of November. She said she would listen to that dar, and I was to come back to her on Wednesday morning the 8th. As I said, on Monday morning I got this letter from City Hall dated the 3rd of November telling me that all my matters had been decided and I was to come back on the 28th. They said that. On that same Friday the 3rd, when I returned here to the court office to say what happened to my case, that they weren't heard, I was told by the court manager, Miles, that actually my case was heard. And bear in mind, I'd been to 4 different courtrooms. The manager told me actually my case was heard in a 5th, in courtroom number 3, under Judge Joanne Carroll. I never heard of her, or neither was I ever notified to be in that court. So they heard my business, and the court manager told me everything is deferred to the 28th of November. Now, these dates, I hope they're throwing you, but I had agreed with Judge O'Leary to come back on the Wednesday morning, the 8th of November. I did that. When I arrived in, lo and behold, all my cases are on the list again, 8 of them. So I begin to speak with the judge to ask her, Ascailing, also the North Higgins Gailing and Acre, Vioram Umbu and Mirla. I asked the judge, had she listened to the digital recording and could she verify that I was to have been in front of her on the 3rd of November? She wouldn't answer me. And I asked her in different ways, had she listened to the DAR, or was she going to, or had she intention? And she just kept speaking over me and wouldn't let me explain myself. And what she was doing was setting new dates for these court hearings, one being today the 23rd and others to be deferred to the 28th. I asked her, well, what about Judge Carroll's decision on the 3rd of November? She said all my cases were back. So was Judge O'Leary second guessing that judge? And if so, had there been an application made in front of any court to have that change made, let alone whether I was notified, which I wasn't? So there seems to be complete arbitrary decision making without representation, without my representation in front of any court on these matters. That, in my view, is a complete violation of my rights. So that's in the handwriting of the judge, showing us that he had verified. You see there in the top right, Court 2, the 28th of the 11th. Court 2, of course, is a seldom used court. It's being specially convened, I think, for Mr. Ó Cadhla because they don't really want the public. And on that, this morning when we went in, of course, the judge and the sergeant prosecutor immediately moved to try and just set a new date for the hearing. But I stood and I insisted, I had to insist in a prolonged way with the judge that I had a right to address the court, seeing as these matters were called before me. Now, some of them are under order from the High Court that she can't hear them because this judge this morning, Judge Dorgan, is the subject of a judicial review I took, which concluded on the 3rd of October, but has not yet issued a decision. So she is under a ban dealing with those matters. But nonetheless, they were in front of the court, so I said I wish to address the situation in regards to what's happening to me in the court. Now, she didn't want to accept the right to speak, so I had to insist. Eventually I said, okay, I will sit down and be quiet if she says I will get the right to speak. She said, yes, you will. And then she stopped. She adjourned the court, left the courtroom. At this stage I had Gardaí standing around me. It appeared they didn't like where I was sitting and I was afraid I was going to get removed. But the judge decided to withdraw. The judge called us back for 12:30. Now, eventually it was about 10 to 1 when she said she'd hear me. Now, I have a detailed account of Scaling, mar a Gailing Egamrah Dorgan. So lees amach na pointy ha gum, nach more trocha pointe. Connie de cor tafid na cuirte. Madele connisaha macas na all shawl ag an ufig agus ag na servici cuirte agus ag brehev oirahe. I went through my list. I did get the right to read them out, but then I had 7 applications to the court to go through, 2 of which are outstanding for nearly 3 years. I paid stamp duty, the whole lot on them, Covilshed, but has spawned a mediev. One second, now, how should I stick this up? Oh, geez, I never heard it gone. Anyway, they're in this mess of paperwork. That's one of them. 2 applications I have which are outstanding from June of 2021. That's nearly 18 months in which they have not. There's one you see there's stamp duty and all paid on these things. These are fully done legally. All the paperwork signed off and entered into the court office. But in 18 months, these have not been allowed a hearing. Why not? Like, there's a procedure laid down in law where you can make an application to a court for some relief or some question you want clarified, but they won't even hear it. So I asked her today, I had 7, these 2 plus 5 other applications to make today, and she said she couldn't deal with them, they weren't on the list. And she conferred with the court clerk, no, they're not on the list. So you wonder, like, how many months does it take for an application to appear on the list? Is 18 months is obviously not long enough for them, or is it the case that this lot inside here in court services are corrupt? That is what I think is the situation. I don't know how one can conclude anything else. So I tried to go through my applications. I had explained the context of me being sent to 4 different courtrooms to end up having my matters heard in a 5th one, which I wasn't allowed into or facilitated. This is corrupt process. So my intention is to bring additional High Court proceedings in this matter because this is a violation of many laws, European conventions, language rights, our constitution, and specifically these Bangalore principles. And I mentioned this to the judge. These are principles which are established and agreed at the United Nations. Ireland's party to it, which agree to the fact that one is entitled to a fair and timely hearing before a court. Now, I don't know whether anybody can say that 3 years for summary matters before a district court need over 30 appearances each on average to be not heard. Now, one of them is specifically blocked by the High Court, but the others, why aren't they heard? Why aren't my applications heard? The truth is, it's a combination of their disrespect and the state's disrespect for our own national language, their lack of provision of services to the public to exercise their rights, which is their constitutional and legal right under the Official Languages Acts to conduct their affairs in their choice of official languages. My choice has always been the first official language, Gaelic. It's my native language as well. It's our national language. So this is where we are. I don't want to bring this to an end, but thanks to people for coming and supporting us today. Like, when wrongdoing happens, let's not allow it happen in secret. Today, after the judge had walked out on me, she waited and put my case back right to the very end. I think this is a classic tactic, wanting to have an empty courtroom left, so she didn't want to hear Mr. Ó Cadhla, as I presume they think, ranting on more about rights. But if getting a fair hearing and justice is, being cantankerous, I don't know, where do we go? Where do you go when the judges themselves are corrupt? Where do you go when court services are corrupt? What can we do? We'll go back to the High Court again, but this whole thing is dragging on, and really what it boils down to is a state which is vindictive. We see it all over the country. We see it, I know, with family law cases. We see barristers, solicitors corrupt to the core. I suppose all we can do is stand up against them and say, no, this isn't right. And we'll do that, and sure, look, come hell or high water, even though it takes a toll. Like, one of the points they didn't let me make was that in 8 cases, on average 30 appearances each over nearly 3 years, can one guess what's the cost to me? Even if I took the price of diesel coming in and out of to the courthouse, right? Well, like, for example, I spent 2 days preparing for today's hearing, 2 full days of my life, right? And I'm not a professional legal guy. Like, the cost to me already in these matters is far in excess of any fine which would have been imposed on me in these cases. Far in excess. Like, justice just doesn't feature in these matters. So anyway, sin fága mé mar sinne, ha mé arás sa court reached and tucked law fed. We're back on the 28th next week, 28th November, in Court 2. They've specially allocated to me, so probably I'll be the only one in there. And we'll do our bit in there again and see what becomes of us. So, Gurmahagif, Slán.